People who are new to Imba often wonder if they can import NPM modules or other modules that they've defined. And you'll be pleased to know that you can, and it all works perfectly. So I've installed a dependency here called nanoid, and let me just show you that it works. So we'll say import nanoid from nanoid. This is just a package from npm, and we'll do console.log nanoid. Now nanoid is a unique identifier generator, and it's just a simple example for me to show you that this works. So when I save, it logs out a unique ID string. So you can import any package from npm, import it into your project, and it will work along with your Imba code. You can also import modules that you define in your own project. So I can say import to/ms from /helpers.imba. And let me just show you console.log to/ms. Okay, so it logs something. That means it's working, it imported it. Let's take a look at this helpers.imba file. And you can see it defines two objects, to/ms and from/ms. Each of these has seconds, minutes, hours, and days properties on it. And each of those is a little function that will convert milliseconds into seconds or from seconds into milliseconds. Okay, so just little helpers. Let me go back here and we see that it console.log shows the results of that object. Let's give it a value. So to/ms.seconds, and let's say we want to see 2 seconds in milliseconds. That should be 2000. Okay, so it just shows that it works. Now let's do from milliseconds to 1000. Let's try 3000, and that should return 3 because 3000 milliseconds, we're going from milliseconds to seconds, and we need to import from milliseconds. Okay, and we get 3 in the console. Again, just demonstrating that if you define your own Imba file that exports something, you can import it into another Imba file. And it works with basically the same exact syntax from JavaScript Node that you're probably familiar with. Now, another great thing is that you can also import from JavaScript files. So I have a JavaScript file here in my project. If you have some existing JavaScript code or you just want to write some of your code in JavaScript, you can do that and import it into your Imba code, no problem. Also within this JavaScript file, you can see that it imports from helpers, which is the Imba file we just looked at. So this JavaScript file is importing from an Imba file. It also imports another NPM module called date functions that I've installed as a dependency in the project. And I'm importing that using this wildcard to say import star as df from date functions. So I'm getting the entire date functions library in a value called df. And you can see how I use it here. And date functions is just a library for handling dates and times. So let's take this function that's being exported from this file that has a really long name. And let's go back to our index file and say import. And I'll put that really long name. And I don't want to use that long name, so I'm going to say as format. So to kind of put an alias for it, from ./format.js. Okay, so this syntax of putting an alias here is just the same as in JavaScript. And let's say console.log format, and I'll put 1000 times 60 for 1 minute times 15 for 15 minutes. Okay, and so that function prints out, a string representation of this number of milliseconds. But I shouldn't have to do this math here, right? Because that's what that other to/ms thing is for. So let's just do to/ms.minutes, and I'll try 125. Let's see what that gives us. 2 hours and 5 minutes. Cool. So just some time formatting functions here, but what these functions do is not important. The important thing in this lesson is that you can use familiar syntax for importing things to import from NPM modules, from Imba files in your project, or from JavaScript or TypeScript files in your project.